Hey everyone, good afternoon. Happy Thursday. I'm Claudia, the EcoPoder organizer here in Arizona, and we have a very special guest today joining us. We're going to give it about a minute or so just to see how many more people can trickle in, and then we'll get to it. Thank you for being here, Pita.
Yay.
Oh my gosh. The clouds looked so crazy yesterday with the storm. It was like thundering and all that. And now it's giving the wallpaper from Toy Story, like the little it's oh
Yeah, it was pitch black.
yeah, that was kind of scary.
It was pitch black, and then there was like the most beautiful sunset.
Yeah, that was a good sunset. Where I live, you could see like the line of where you could see the storm. It's like black, and then you could see the orange, but then there's still lightning. It was kind of crazy, but can't complain when it rains in Arizona.
And it was hailing in West Phoenix.
Yeah, my family group chat was going off because a lot of my cousins, they live in like Tolleson and Glendale area, and they were like, their kids are like, "Oh my gosh, it's snowing."
No, that kind of snow messes up your car.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, all right. Again, hello everyone. Good afternoon. We have a very exciting episode for you today and a very special guest joining us for today's episode. I actually had the pleasure of meeting Pita at our Poderosa Summit here in Arizona. So hi Pita, welcome to the show. How are
Hi,
you?
Claudia.
How are you feeling today?
Good. I'm feeling good. I'm like actually cold. It only took 9, 11 months for that to happen, but yeah, it's been cold in Phoenix, and I missed it.
I know I busted out the hoodie today, but yesterday I did not have a hoodie and I regretted it. But today is our monthly EcoPoder Plática, and I want to talk about November. November has so many special days and celebrations. First of all, it's Native Heritage Month, which is super special and near and dear to my heart. We had the elections, we had National Latina Civic Engagement Day, and so I just kind of want to know, is there anything that you're looking forward to this month or anything that you might have already participated in that really just, was like a hug to your heart?
We had the El Verdes Vida music festival this month, which was a lot of fun. Well, that was in October, but it's all kind of a blur. And I am obviously looking forward to Thanksgiving and eating and being with my family for a good portion of the break.
Valid. Yeah. I feel like seeing family is all fun, especially as my family comes from a bunch of different states or comes back home. And, but also the food, the food is always great. All right. So I'm going to give a brief introduction to Pita. For those of you who don't know all the amazing work that she's done, Pita Juarez is a strategic communications leader and award-winning storyteller with over a decade of experience in film, digital media, advocacy. She's worked at the intersection of climate and environmental justice, uplifting underrepresented communities and ensuring their voices shape the national narrative. Throughout her career, she has supported nonprofits, candidates, small business, and advocacy organizations in crafting impactful campaigns that drive policy change and public engagement. In 2022, Pita was recognized as a Grist 50 Fixer for Arts and Media, honored for her innovative approach to reshaping the climate narrative through storytelling and strategic communication. I've seen a lot of your work, and it's so. I think people underestimate media and like art when it comes to campaigns and advocacy. I think it's very, especially when it comes more organically. So thank you for sharing your art with the world.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you so much. It's always really weird to hear your bio. You're like, oh my God. But it's also a really good reminder of like some of the things that you've done in the past and how proud I am of those experiences.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, especially when you've been doing it for so long, sometimes you're like, oh yeah, I did do that, right? But today we are going to dive deep into the topic of data centers, especially in Arizona. I remember hearing how many data centers we had here in Arizona for the first time this year and was kind of taken aback by it. I didn't realize how many we had. And so to start us off, Arizona has become a hub for data centers, right? But at what cost? I've had the opportunity actually of going out to places like San Bernardino and seeing the way these data centers are like taking over cities. And I am seeing that kind of replicate itself here. So, my first question for you is going to be, as both a journalist and a mom, I know I'm in my auntie era right now. How do you explain people, especially other parents or even immigrant families, what data centers are and why so many companies are building them right now?
Well, I'm not a journalist anymore, but once you do that, it kind of never goes away. And I'm also an auntie. But how do I feel about the data centers?
So, I guess what we're trying to get to the root of is like, how do we explain to our, children and our communities what data centers even are and why there's so many popping up right now?
Yeah, well, I think, organizations like Poder, like Moms Clean Air Force, are working really at the grassroots level with, um, people who are being affected by this will continue to be affected by this. And rural places like, we just saw in Arizona and Tucson, um, where people really organized themselves and they were able to stop a data center from coming in Tucson, especially because Tucson is such a interesting place when it comes to their water. So I think we need organizations like ours who are connecting with people every day, not just connecting them with them, but we're also connecting. With relatable resources. So, right, we are speaking their language. We're doing a lot of the organizing that we're doing. We're doing it with underrepresented communities, especially with the Latino community, with their Latinx. So I think that's a good way to start those conversations. And, I think for me, when you're talking about this data center and what does it mean and how does it affect you, you talk about skyrocketing utilities, and how those data centers are affecting the prices that you're going to pay for electricity. Not even just in the summer, but we continue to, talk to people about still paying really high electricity bills, even, in November. Really, when you should have, I remember turning off my AC like 1st of October, and that just was not the case this year.
Yeah. I know for me, I try to connect it a lot to because I have younger siblings. I think my youngest sister just turned 7 like a week ago. And so, not to use the term iPad kid, but they very much are iPad kids. And so explaining to them, how much storage is like taking up even space on their iPad and how if all of us have, screens that have that much like on them and, we need to make sure that digital cleaning, I guess, is how I kind of came to like really get them to understand it. Um,
Mhm.
and even for my mom, I know my mom is very big on wanting to take pictures of everything and keep pictures. So I actually started printing them out for her to have, and then we'll just like delete like 100 photos. Um, but yeah, like a big thing for, I guess, in my family that we um, try to talk about to get the kids to understand it. And as I mentioned before, for me personally, I wasn't really sure even what a data center was up until 3 years ago. I'd always assumed just like a new warehouse was popping up because they look like warehouses, right? And especially after the pandemic, when everyone started buying everything from Amazon or online, So I guess what made you start paying attention to data centers and the impacts that they're having on our communities?
I mean, I have had the privilege of working in this space of environmental justice for uh, now for a couple of years. And I think that once those data centers started coming up, we saw how relatable and how integrated it was where environmental justice, especially looking at like the environmental effects that it has on communities. And a lot of these data centers too are being built like in low income neighborhoods. So, if there's an apartment complex there, they're going to tear it down. Also, I think seeing the intersection of these data centers with, um, water, with the effects in the future, because AI, unfortunately, I don't think is going anywhere, right? It's just going to continue to increase and get more powerful. So I think that's how the data centers came into topic for me. And then just working in coalition to see like how people were being affected by this and realizing the major environmental effects that it really has on our comunidades.
Yeah, I actually just attended this coalition meeting yesterday that really,
Yeah, I wanted to go to that.
yeah, it opened so much for me in terms of, even semiconductors and how, they have to obviously transport materials and all that, which that didn't click for me initially, that was something that was also going to get impacted by this. And then two, just as like a younger person in this space, understanding the impacts, even socially and like mentally, AI has on us. Not only is it like threatening to take all of these jobs and, soaking up all of our water and, but also just thinking about the way that it is and has already started to impact our mental well-being and our capabilities and our autonomy
Yeah.
over.
And just how much power and electricity they absorb.
Yeah,
I know, that they are working with some of these companies that we're constantly protesting, our utility companies, to get, rates that are lower than some of the people who are, residents who are that, you and I talk about all the time that are paying high utility bills. I was reading this article on the calculation of AI's impact, um, and the data centers currently represent about 4% of the total U.S. electricity demand. So by 2030, this number is expected to jump to 9%. So that means that if the power grid can handle the increased demand, carbon dioxide emissions of AI data centers may also more than double by 2030. And you know what's interesting is that I worked on this ballot initiative where we were trying to pass clean renewable energy, which is like duh that we should have that, especially in a place like Arizona, and not because it's hot, but because we have so much sunshine.
yeah,
And the mission of that was to go 50% by 2030, which is like how in the world that didn't happen. But then these AIs and these data centers by 2030 will just increase, how toxic it is for us and also generating and taking up even more power from the grid.
yeah. And I just like when you said that, it also just made me think of the communities that exist, especially like tribal lands that don't even have access to these grids, right? And so we can make this effort and make sure that the data centers have 10% of our energy, but we can't even, create something like that to even exist for a whole community. That's very, yeah, that's just where my head went with that.
Yeah.
That's another problem for another time. A lot of really important decisions are being made at the, based on our future at the ACC. So that's kind of where I spent my day yesterday, the Arizona Corporation Commission. And so some of these decisions are obviously tied back to federal protections. Like we've discussed the endangerment findings, the ruling that requires the EPA to regulate greenhouse gases, especially that endangered public health. But most people, especially immigrant families, or Spanish speaking families don't really know what the ACC is or how these decisions are affecting their day-to-day life. So from your perspective, what's keeping our communities from engaging in these processes? Is it language access, trust, information in general, or maybe something entirely and something else entirely?
I think all of those things, the lack of trust on the administration, the lack of trust even in like some of our political local people. But if you don't believe in those, the political administrations, that's why like you and I and the organizations that we work with exist, because we're just regular people trying to find better solutions for our families, like in the movements. I think that we go into these movements and we go into these organizations because a lot of this is really personal, because nobody was talking to your mom about it, because we don't know what the ACC is. But here you have a single mom. I grew up with a single mom who had 4 kids, and if an electricity bill is something that keeps you from buying more groceries to feed your kid, that's a problem in so many different ways. But I wanted to talk about a little bit about the endangerment findings and what does that mean, because we tend to sometimes just talk a lot in jargon when it comes to the environmental community. But the endangerment finding was issued by the EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency, by the Supreme Court decision determining that greenhouse gases, which is climate pollution, emitted when fossil fuels are burnt for energy, needed to be regulated. This is all under the Clean Air Act. And really, it's all of these things are here to protect us, right? The Environmental Protection Agency. And it's really, really scary to see that these things could potentially be rolled back and how it affects our health. I always make the connection with public health because I feel like people always they always trust a nurse, right? Even Latino, your mom, if they're not political, but they'll be like, well, the nurse said, a nurse can tell you anything. And you'll be like, okay. But it really, really affects our air pollution and the air that we're breathing. And to me, I just like, LGBTQ plus and everything else, like within the spectrum of clean air is a basic human right, and it should be. But the fact that it's not regulated just because of greedy politicians and their greedy agendas is really, really scary, because I feel like this is exactly where we are. So upcoming stuff when it comes to the endangerment findings is hopefully, and you and I will probably be on some of those calls, is that all of that is protected depending on what a lot of these administration decides on what to do. And that's why we continue to fight. And it just makes me think of future generations, of what are we leaving? I am not a mom, but I am a person who cares about the livelihoods of people and how they're going to live the rest of their lives. And also just like parks and green spaces and not having that. And I think I've seen more liquor stores in communities where a lot of low income BIPOC folks live than I see parks. Or if you see a park, it's those terrible parks that here in Arizona we have, and they're like made out of plastic. And it's just like, I wouldn't wish that on my enemy, for you to slide down that slide, because you're gonna get burnt in so many different ways. Because first it's hot, and second it's plastic.
Sorry, not to interrupt, but
you know what I'm talking about.
There was one time I was like in high school and I went to the park, my mom's apartment, and the freaking slide like melted through. It's so hot outside, like, and it's just like we could definitely be doing better.
Yeah, and so think about it like so for me it's like on this federal level also, these rollbacks and these protections that we currently have hopefully don't go away. They all trickle down to local to all of our local stuff. So like circle to the ACC and the Arizona Corporation Commission, and I feel like less people knew about it, but our organizations have done such a good job at holding these corporations accountable by showing up, like showing up early, by recruiting young people who like are just out there full force saying like, hey, that's like the planet that I'm gonna live in, so like you better fight, right?
Yeah.
And then also just like the pool of diverse voices within those coalitions is like a really cool thing to see, coming from like more of an immigration background, um, where man, like you really saw people come together, whether all types of people here in Arizona with SB 1070, but I feel like that's happening more and more in the environmental movement, and it's really really great to see because this is the space that we always needed to be in because we've always been the most affected by uh, things like air pollution that we never knew about.
Yeah. And I think it's also very interesting because I grew up in a mining town. And so there's certain things in the air that actually made its way to my mom's bloodstream and actually ended up affecting all of us, like all of my siblings that my mom has carried. We all have respiratory issues in our own different ways. And I think that that's just something that really connects it, but not a lot of people like would have even like people don't talk about those things, I feel like as often. But
Yeah, because I feel like it's like I always say like climate sometimes could be like I think you can think about it as like a silent killer because it's not your SNAP benefits that where you're going to the store and it's not there. It's not immigration where your case is going to take years to get like a solution. Um, it's like something that just like you have asthma and I'm just like it's genetics. Maybe it's the environment around you where you live, and we've never thought about it that way. So I think we are doing a really good job at letting people of seeing the connection, within visuals, within radio, within stories that we're telling.
yeah, and I really appreciate that too. I think that the Spanish media connections that we have at BOLED have really been super impactful. I mean, I'm definitely, even my tias that I feel like don't really, climate is definitely not their number one issue, but they're even, out here talking about it and making sure that their kids are coming to, we're doing an event on Saturday. It's like a community cleanup. And my tia was like, my kids will be there.
Look, when your tias are talking about data centers, you won. Okay,
Yeah.
you won.
But all that to say too is, it really is a problem, and I'm super thankful for the work that I get to do on it, that you get to do on it. And I'm super thankful for the community that even is the diverse community in these coalition spaces that you just mentioned. Yesterday, I met so many different organizations and just, even people, citizens that are just experiencing these things that want to continue this fight. So I guess my final question is just as a passionate advocate, as we're pushing for environmental justice for our community, what gives you hope when you think about Arizona's next generation and their awareness on climate and justice?
I honestly, young people give me hope. I had two interns this year that were just amazing. And, every time they spoke at a press conference, it was like, oh my God, I felt like a teacher, like when your kids are graduating. But they gave me hope. They're just like, they get it. They're so into it. They're so knowledgeable. Like things that I feel like are still very policy heavy that are hard to understand. It's just like it clicks. And it clicks because they're able to make it relatable. They're able to connect it to stories. They're able to connect it to their own life experiences. And it gives me hope because they're now going into college and they're going into some type of environmental policy, environmental type of like uh major, and that makes me really 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 happy. I don't think I knew anybody when I was in college that was studying. I'm sure there was, but now I feel like that's more common, and maybe it's because of the ecosystem that I'm in, but uh That's just so cool, like just I'm like an 18-year-old who wants to be an environmental scientist or wants to teach environment. And that gives me hope, that makes me really happy, and I'm so proud and want to continue to work with more youth, with more moms, really with anybody who wants to get involved, and continue to tell stories, because I feel like that's how people listen. And a lot of this stuff, like I said, could be very policy heavy, but I think if when we're adding empathy
Mhm.
to our stories and how this matters, I think that's when we are successful.
Yeah, I hear that. My grandma used to always say, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And I think that for me transferred over to so many other things, right? Like you're talking about young people even going to college. I actually wanted to be a doctor when I was in college because I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to save lives. But then acknowledging that there's other ways to do that without, also going into a lot of debt. So,
Yeah, no, listen, hey, my wife made the pivot from also wanting to go in pre-med to going into public health, because there's so many other ways that we can help our community. And I feel like now public health is such a major focus and such a connection of the work that I'm doing. So it worked out.
yeah, for sure. Well, I do know that we have this awesome clip um, from a video that you directed and produced, I want to say. Yeah, so I don't know if we can get a little clip in from that. And then also just take some time to think about some questions from the audience.
I fight for climate justice by empowering people to use their voice.
Yo lucho por el medio ambiente para que mi familia pueda respirar aire limpio.
By creating art that matters.
By protecting democracy.
Para tener autobuses limpios para nuestros niños.
By teaching our generations what land we reside on and how to nurture Mother Earth.
Do you want to fight for climate justice? We need you exactly where you're at.
Únete al movimiento.
Join the movement.
I love that. I think it's so condensed, but it's so like all the different layers of how you're going to get involved, right?
Yeah, and those were like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
No, like we got people like the guy at the beginning, he's a therapist, so he fights about, by giving people a voice. And then Denise at the end, she's a biology teacher, even though she looks like she's like 18. And so that was really important to her. So try to like get a little bit of like all these people who in their own different way are organizing and are teaching people about what does environmental justice look like for you.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good one. So we are about to close out, but we do have some questions here really fast. The question is, what is the first step we can take to prevent data centers from overdeveloping and taking up space in our communities?
Well, you were at the meeting yesterday, so I think that's good for you.
Yeah, so basically we talked about just getting ahead of it, looking at the hearings that are happening at our Arizona Corporation Commission, or even in planning and zoning commission meetings that we can do at a county level or a city level, and really make sure that we're understanding what they're trying to develop. I know we talked a lot about the inaccessibility at the Arizona Corporation Commission meeting yesterday, because it said the item that they were listening to, like what they wanted to talk about, but it didn't give any information about who the companies that were proposing these were, how long this has been in process, or even just a little blurb of what exactly we're asking for. So it takes time and research, but I am pretty positive that we can stay in front of it, especially too as we advocate at city council meetings, because we can do that. That's what they did out in Tucson, and it was awesome and amazing to see how many people showed up. And I think just physical presence makes all the difference. I know it's kind of hard when we have jobs and class and kids, and bring your kids, take the time off. You can make virtual comments. I think think they're called like online comments. I don't know.
Your
But
petition.
yeah, you can sign petitions. You can do that, all that jazz. Or also even make your own proposals. Maybe we don't need a data center in that lot. Maybe we need like a third space, like a park or, anything else. So that's my 2 cents on it. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, perfect.
All right. Well, I think that's all I had for you. Thank you so much for your time today. Don't forget to follow Poder at Poder Latinx and join our next event, which is a community cleanup at South Mountain. We are super excited about that. That's my favorite pastime is cleaning parks, so come join me. Words. And then Pita, if you had anything you wanted to share, any upcoming events?
No, I mean, definitely follow Moms Clean Air Force Arizona page. That's where we put up a lot of our information, from articles that might be helpful to, sharing partner events like, your cleanup that we'll share now.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you again so much for joining us, Pita. I will see you at our next whatever we're doing.
I'm sure I'll see you next week.
Yeah, literally. And then thank you to everyone who joined our live. And I hope you guys have a good rest of the day.